Hello everyone, I'm Drew Goldfarb. Welcome to this edition of Betting for the Cycle, where we're giving you 4 picks for upcoming baseball games, matchups, or prop bets, and trying to go 4 for 4 to bet for the cycle. Here's how this works. I'm going to pose 4 potential wagers or daily fantasy comparisons. Our experts and I will each give you our picks and rank them based on how confident we are in the outcome. Least confident pick will be our single, most confident pick will be our home run. We'll each have a pick that we consider to be a home run, a triple, a double, and a single each and every week, giving us a chance at betting for the cycle. Our individual stats are going to be tracked all season long, and you'll actually see those pop up on the screen as well during this episode. This week, I'm joined by Taylor Smith and Jim Baviglia. We start with a matchup for tonight. Good game coming up tonight in Chicago. The Cubs hosting the Colorado Rockies. Taylor, in daily fantasy, which starting pitcher are you grabbing for tonight's games? Marquez or Darvish?
So I think Marquez is the better pitcher overall, but it's kind of a question of value. We have wind blowing in at Wrigley today, which is a huge deal. It's also going to be cool, temperatures in the 60s at first pitch. Darvish has actually been a better strikeout pitcher in terms of strikeout rate than Marquez this season by about 3%. The walks are a problem for him. He's got a 15% walk rate, which is horrifying. But the Cubs lineup's also quite a bit more threatening, a 222 ISO against righties this season compared to 187 for Colorado. The Rockies, rather, are far less daunting away from Coors Field. So it's gross. I don't feel good about it at all. Picking Darvish to do anything good is a huge risk. So I'm going to make it my single. I'll take Darvish over Marquez.
Jim, where are you going with this?
Yeah, I'm going in the opposite direction, actually. Darvish just scares me in this one too much. 41 walks in 61 innings. Taylor referenced the walk rate, which is such an issue. And the other thing is he hasn't been able to put back-to-back good starts together. He had a decent start his last start. Every quality start that he's had this year, he's followed it up with a lousy effort. And I just see Marquez as a guy who on the road has been excellent. He's had a couple rocky starts on the road where he faced some really good teams, but then he's also had 3 starts on the road, combined 24 shutout innings. And I think you're going to see a little bit more of that in this one. I'm going to go with Marquez, and I'm going to make him my triple pick.
I'm also going with Marquez. I'm going to make it my single for this one. When you look at the numbers, the big one that jumped out for me is that Darvish is much worse at home. Which is a strange thing. I mean, friendly confines, I guess not friendly to him. So his ERA is actually a full point higher, or more than a point higher than his season average when he's pitching at Wrigley Field. Nice little strikeout to innings pitch. The K per 9 rate's really good, which is nice for daily fantasy, but that walk rate, the whip, just scares me a bit. And in a game where I don't know that there's necessarily like a guaranteed team to win, if the Cubs were clearly the better team, or the Rockies were clearly the better team, I'd be a lot more confident in going one way or the other. But when you can't lock up the win points necessarily, I'm just going to go with Marquez. I'm making it the single because the confidence level a little bit low on that one. So let's go to a spin on a series pick here. On Friday, the American League's best team, the Houston Astros, begin a 3-game series against the American League's worst team, the Baltimore Orioles. The question here is not will Houston beat Baltimore in the series, but will the Astros sweep the Orioles in the series? Jim, you're up first.
Yeah, I got burned last week by going with one of the weaker teams, the Marlins, my home run pick. I'm actually going to take the Orioles to salvage at least a game in here, but I'm only going to make it my single pick. If you look at the pitching matchups, the Astros have Garrett Cole on Friday, so that's obviously a big advantage for them. But then on Saturday, they're actually making Framber Valdez their starter, so he's got to stretch it out. And on Sunday, Wade Miley, who's been excellent for them this year, but also going against Dylan Bundy, who has been pitching much better of late, probably the Orioles' best starting pitcher talent-wise. And you're talking about an Astros team that is not at full strength. No Carlos Correa, no George Springer, kind of filling in around them. The Orioles can hit the ball. It's just so hard to sweep a team. So I'm going to go with the Orioles salvaging a game, and I'm going to use that as my single.
Very good points on it. It obviously completing a sweep is going to be a difficult thing. I do think the Orioles could sweep themselves. I'm picking Houston to complete the sweep. I'm making it the double. Again, it's not the most confident pick for me. I think that it's when you're just looking at these teams, it's more likely that the Orioles blow a game than it is that they win a game, in my opinion. Just the way that they've been playing this season, and Houston should be able to win the other two. So I'm going with the Astros complete the sweep. I think it's, if you're betting on games individually for it, you'll come out ahead if you bet on all three for the Astros to win. So I'm going to just say that they complete the sweep because like I said, I think it's more likely that Baltimore blows a game that they might be able to win than it is that they actually win a game. Taylor, you got to break the tie here. It's the rubber selection here. It's 1-1. Which way are you going for this pick?
I'm going to take Houston here. It is hard to sweep, but the Orioles are like an insane level of bad. David Hess against Garrett Cole, that's about as bad a mismatch as you can possibly have. David Hess might be the worst starter in the game. I do think Sundays, like Jim was saying, Bundy against Miley, I think that's a pretty interesting matchup for Baltimore. But, you take the starters into account, but then you also factor in bullpens, and the Orioles have the second worst bullpen in the league behind the Nationals. The ERA is 5.97 for the relievers. So even if Bundy puts together a decent start, there's a very real chance the bullpen could just cough it up behind him. I'm not super confident in this pick either. Houston is down several key bats right now, but I'll make it my double. I think the Astros will sweep, but I'm not super confident either.
Pick number 3, the Red Sox and Rays begin a 4-game series on Friday that includes a doubleheader Saturday afternoon. Friday's game scheduled to feature a pitching matchup of Yonny Chirinos for Tampa, Rick Porcello for Boston. In daily fantasy, which pitcher are we taking? I'm going first. This is going to be my triple pick. And when it was supposed to be David Price for Boston, I was going with Price. With Rick Porcello coming in, he doesn't exactly have a really great K per 9 rate, 56 strikeouts and 68 innings pitched. His whip is not very good. He gives up a lot of hits, gives up a lot of walks. His record isn't particularly great either, although that's, again, with Boston. They had a weird start to the season. On the other side, though, a very similar strikeout. You're not getting a strikeout pitcher in this, but Chirinos is, just looking at the whip, is under 1 compared to a 1.4 for Porcello. I think that this is a really good game. I picked Boston to manage to at least earn a 2-2 split with the Yankees last weekend. Whether it was the weather or them, they blew that one for me. So I'm going Tampa on this side. I'm going with Tampa's starting pitcher. I'm making it my triple. I went back and forth between making it the triple and the home run because I don't have a lot of confidence in Porcello. And like I said, when it was Price in this thing, which we were looking at last night, I was locking in Price, and I was closer to making that just a confident triple. I think we have a lot of picks this week that are a little bit borderline. So this is my triple, but it's a relative. It's basically a double stealing third. It's a double and an error, is the way that I'm phrasing it for this one. It's a triple pick because we can't pick a double and an error. But that's basically the way I'm going on it. And Taylor, we're going to go back to you for this one. What is your pick, and how are you ranking this? You got your triple and your home run left, I think.
Yeah, it's going to be my triple too. It was, like you said, my home run yesterday when we were talking about David Price. But obviously, Porcello's not as good a pitcher as Price. The strikeouts aren't as strong. The walks are too high. But a couple things have me leaning Porcello here. One's the matchup. The Red Sox lineup in general is just more daunting. There's more power there. Tampa's a good lineup, but I see a path for Porcello to have a good start here, whereas Chirinos getting blown up, I think, is a realistic possibility. Another is the leash. Porcello has been allowed to top 100 pitches 5 times already this season. Chirinos has yet to get there. He's been pitching in long relief a lot after the opener. He's only started a handful of games. 6 of his 12 appearances have been real starts. He just doesn't go deep into games, which limits his fantasy upside. I don't love the spot for Porcello, but pitching deeper into the game just gives him more inherent upside. So I think that's the reason I'm siding with Porcello as my triple.
Jim?
Yeah, I'm going to go with Chirinos in this one. I'm going with him as my double. You talked about it, Drew. His whip has been outstanding this year, under 1, 3.25 ERA. I'm not sure if they'll use him as a long reliever like Taylor talked about in this game, or if they'll use him as the starter. They haven't announced quite yet. But in either case, I think it's okay for him. The interesting thing about Porcello is he tends to get when he does get roughed up, it happens early. And so if Chirinos does kind of come in as the second pitcher in that game, it could actually benefit him and give him a better chance for the win. And I feel like the Rays are tough against right-handed pitchers. They platoon and they come at you a lot of different angles. So I'm going to go with Chirinos in this one, and I'm going to make it my double.
All right. By the way, if we are in a situation where there's a pitcher changed for the game, what we will do if the matchup gets carried over to a different day, it'll stick that way for our scoring purposes. If the matchup changes, if it does go back to, like, let's say David Price against Chirinos, the person who picked that side would either get a walk or could still get credit for a win if their pitcher ends up, their team ends up getting the win for that. Last one to complete the cycle, and I do believe, if I'm keeping track correctly, we're all making this the home run pick. It's another series. Cardinals and Cubs playing the Sunday Night Baseball game this weekend, capping off what's slated to be a 3-game series at Wrigley Field between these two rivals. Which team comes away with the series win? And I do believe, like I said, I'm right, that we're all making this the home run, Taylor.
Yep. The home run, like I said, was initially David Price, but, things change. So I'm taking the Cubs as my home run. They're at home. I think they have the pitching edge in terms of starters with Cole Hamels, John Lester, Kyle Hendricks. The Cardinals countering with Jack Flaherty, Adam Wainwright, and Genesis Cabrera. I think that last game kind of swings it for me. Cabrera is just overmatched at the major league level. He's a walk machine. He hasn't really shown that he's capable of succeeding at this level yet. And Hendricks is obviously a quality pitcher. So on the whole, I just think they're better in general. They're in first place in the division right now. The Cardinals haven't really hit the heights I thought they might. So I'm taking the Cubs as my home run.
Jim?
Yeah, I'm with Taylor on this same thing. I'm going with the Cubs as my home run. He mentioned the pitching matchups. I think the Cardinals' probably best chance for a game is game one. You got Flaherty against Hamels. Hamels pitched real well against the Cardinals, took a hard loss last week. But I think maybe the Cardinals could catch up to him the second time around. But you look at game two, Adam Wainwright somehow shut the Cubs out when they met last time, but he walked 7 batters. I mean, the margin for error to do that again is really kind of crazy. So I can't see that happening again. And like Taylor said, that matchup on Sunday is just all Cubs. Kyle Hendricks, who's been brilliant this year, and going against probably the combination of Genesis Cabrera and Michael Wacha as maybe a long reliever. I mean, that matchup just so tilted to the Cubs. Plus, it's in Chicago. So I really like the Cubs here as my home run to win that series.
Yeah, I'm going to just make it unanimous. So it's a 3-game sweep. But yeah, Cubs home run pick. The pitching matchups are really favorable. I think the best chance that the Cardinals have to spoil this is if there's rain in Chicago this weekend, which is there is supposed to be. If it ends up being a 2-game series and the Cardinals can get a 1-1 split. But yeah, you guys have made all the points I was going to make. The pitching matchups are the biggest thing for me. The Cubs are kind of sending out, they're top of the rotation. So I've got to go with Chicago. It should be 2-1. Hopefully, if the weather does roll in, we don't end up with a walk coming from what would be a split. Before we wrap up, we're checking back in on our World Series picks. Last week, I grabbed the matchup of the Philadelphia Phillies at plus 420 to win the NL and the Boston Red Sox at plus 550 to win the AL. Those odds have stayed steady this week, so I'm just going to stick with them. That's still going to be my pick for the World Series matchup. Taylor, last week you locked in the Astros and the Dodgers. Houston has stayed steady, while your plus 170 odds on LA is better than the plus 130 odds that they show now. So any changes do you want to make, or are you going to stay with that plus 170 that you've got as a gift on LA?
Yeah, it's hard to go against the Dodgers for me. They just look like head and shoulders the best team in the National League by a ton. The Phillies just lost Andrew McCutchen for the season, tore his ACL the other night. Obviously a blow for them. I do think they're still the biggest threat. The Cubs and Brewers are interesting. The Cubs look better than they did the last couple of years, but still the Dodgers have been so good. Plus 170, it's not great, but I'm willing to take that still. So I'm not going to change anything.
And it is better than they're at now, which is plus 130. So you got in, not on the ground floor, but close enough. Jim, you locked in the Yankees and the Dodgers. Already went over LA's movement. The Yankees shifted from plus 230 to plus 220 odds. So you got ahead of the shift a little bit there. Any changes you'd like to make? Or are you going to stick with those plus 230, plus 170?
Yeah, no, I feel pretty good about those two. You know, the Yankees, I feel maybe a little bit better because now the news is out that it looks like they're the leaders for Dallas Keuchel. And even though they don't really have that much of a need in the starting rotation, when you add Keuchel and Severino, if a pitcher should get hurt, they have a little bit more depth there. Plus, they've still got Aaron Judge coming back. They've still got Stanton coming back. All these guys, plus all the fill-ins have been pitching so well. I just think the Yankees, when it comes down to it, have the most depth. And then this is the same thing with the Dodgers. I mean, it's just ridiculous. I mean, the Dodgers get a pitcher hurt. They still have guys in their bullpen who are fantastic options. And I just think that really comes into play over a course of a long season. And once we get to the playoffs where guys are kind of banged up. So I'm going to stick with the old traditional 70s matchup, the Yankees and the Dodgers.
All right, well, that'll do it for this week's edition of Betting for the Cycle. Be sure to check back next week where we'll show you the stats of how we did and give you our latest picks. For Jim Bavili and Taylor Smith, I'm Drew Goldfarb. Thanks for watching. See you next time.